Welcome back to the Etsy Consultant Podcast, and for those who follow this podcast, my extreme apologies for the huge delay between the last podcast that I released sometime back in March and now heading towards the end of June. So I apologise for this. The simple reason is I've been so busy in my consultancy helping people and lots of projects going on there, so I haven't had time to get back to getting into podcasts. But I'm here now with a new episode, and as those of you that follow this podcast know, my podcast is an area or opportunity for me to explore themes and topics in more detail, not at such a frenetic pace as YouTube, because if you see my content on YouTube, you'll know that it's quite quick, and that's all to do with engagement and keeping people's attentions on my videos. With this podcast, which is also a video podcast, though, I like to slow down, and those who want to be here and really take in and get something from what I teach are the ones that I want to be here, and also new people. So if you're new, hello to you as well, and welcome to my podcast. So today, the elephant in the room. This is something that literally nobody ever talks about, mostly because it's not widely known that this elephant in the room even exists. But let's understand what's going on. So on Etsy, we know that nowadays it's quite difficult to open a store. It's not so easy. If you do manage to open a store, often it's suspended, sometimes with good reason, sometimes incorrectly by Etsy. If you do manage to get a store open and start to build your store at any point in time after opening and growing the store, you can also be suspended then and not be told what the exact reason is for that suspension. And I have a real issue with this. You know, if people put their hearts and souls into their Etsy businesses and then just randomly, you wake up one day and your store's been suspended with little to no guidance as to the reason for that suspension, I think this is completely unacceptable. But that's not my point. My point is that the bigger your Etsy store gets, the more profound the elephant in the room becomes. And the elephant in the room is lost quality score. So if you've got a brand new store and it's been open a couple of weeks or a day or something like that, a few days, and Etsy suspends it, it's not that big a deal. Of course it's a big deal for you because it's a shock, but I mean in terms of store performance, it's not that big a deal. But if, like some of my clients that I work with, you do $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 a day and more, and your store gets closed, wrongly suspended by Etsy for even 24, 48 hours, and usually it's longer than that, the effect on the store performance when you get your store back can be absolutely catastrophic. Because it's just like vacation mode. It's like a forced vacation mode. I hope everyone knows now, if you're building and growing an Etsy store, don't use vacation mode. It's just the risk is too high to your store to use it. If you need to take a vacation, extend your processing times to cover that. But when you don't get a choice and your store is suspended, you're literally taken out of the e-commerce race against all the other shops on Etsy. Your store is parked at the side of the motorway whilst all the other stores fly past you. And if a store that's doing $5,000 a day, $10,000 a day gets suspended, even for 48 hours, that has a catastrophic effect on the revenue the store starts to earn once the store is reopened. And it can take months for the store performance to return to normal, depending on the volume of sales you had, depending on the niche, depending on how many bestsellers and popular now listings you had. These stores can go from $10,000 a day down to $2,000. And that $2,000 goes on for weeks as the store may recover and come back up. And this is the hidden problem or elephant in the room with Etsy. Etsy won't even acknowledge it. They won't even acknowledge it with you, right? They will just reference, or you will be talking about the physical lost revenue when your store was suspended. So, okay, I was closed for 10 days and I normally earn $10,000 a day. I've lost $100,000, right? That's bad enough. No, you haven't lost $100,000. You've lost $100,000 and 10 days of lost visibility that those sales would have brought into your store, that Etsy expects to see in your store, but has now itself cut your store out of the race against everyone else. And I believe that this painful part of stores being suspended and then Etsy taking forever. I've heard horror stories of a month to get your store back, 2 months, and these stores are doing, it's people's livelihoods. You know, they're doing $100 a day, $200 a day or more, regular stores, right? And they're out for 2 months. So not only do they lose all their revenue, but they lose the quality score that would have been there that's been taken away by Etsy. And I really, really feel the time is going to come when somebody at Etsy needs to acknowledge this fundamental fact. If we build businesses on Etsy and we bring revenue in, as well as all the revenue we get and we give to Etsy, also we have built our quality score. That is through our effort inside Etsy's quality score system that is now there. It is trust-based. We give Etsy trust, they give us sales. Sorry, we give Etsy sales, they give us trust. Trust is visibility. That's how this system works. And it needs to be addressed. There needs to be a safeguard in place or a process in place whereby if a store has created a decent platform for itself or visibility profile inside Etsy for itself and something goes wrong that is not the seller's fault, Etsy needs to reinstate that lost visibility. I absolutely believe this to be something that needs to come at some point, because it's not enough just to get your store back. You need back what you lost that Etsy wrongly took from you. And this elephant in the room is something that I hope one day gets addressed. Etsy don't want to talk about it. I've tried to work with Etsy on this on a couple of cases whereby some clients of mine lost a lot of money. And they don't want to know about it. They are not interested in admitting that if it's their fault, perhaps in fairness, they should be able to replace a portion of this quality score. So let me know what you think about this. Have you been closed? Has your store been closed? Have you lost visibility after you were closed? And how long did it take you to bring the store back to its previous performance? I'd love to know more about what you think about this. I may actually turn this podcast also into a YouTube episode. I know that it's published on YouTube, but I may do that as well. So love to hear from you in the comments on this. And I will catch you in the next podcast episode, hopefully not as long as this one. I apologize again. It was an awful amount of time between my last podcast and this one. Stay well. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you.